his birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the divine benediction from humanity alive, because it spreads the grace of the benediction movement, which is the life of all transcendental knowledge. He increases those from transcendental bliss, and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. Oh my Lord, the holy name of the Lord can remember all benedictions of living beings, and thus have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, and bless all your transcendental entities, that nothing in high and class rules to change these names. Oh my Lord, our kindness enables us to use your virtue by holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking ourselves lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of falsity, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to do the world, nor do I desire to be women, nor do I want any number of followers. The only one who causes devotional service, birth after birth. O Son Maharaj, Nanda Krishna, I am your servant. Yet somehow that I fall into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death, and place me upon the items that you let us speak. Oh Lord, when my eyes be decorated with tears of love, when constantly when I chant your holy name, when will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on edge and tears of the rain? Oh Govinda, bring your separation. I am considering moments to like God beautiful more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like drops of rain, and I am feeling all radiant and God in absence. I am alone where Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he answers me rough with ice and grace. All makes me broken heart and not any present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for his Lord is the worshipful Lord unconditionally.
Ram Jai Shri Krishna Sankirtan Ki Jai. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chahade Yamuna Tiravana Chahade Yamuna Tiravana Chahade Jai Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Prabhupada. Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura, Haribo. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagi ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Venkatesh Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Skambartmana Guru Vrinda ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Mirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Miritam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Hayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhutaya Mahatpriyaya Mahapurva Vibhurnirma Kshati Yadamusha Purusha Bhunkte Gunan Sudasa Sudasatmakalang Krishishta Bhagavan Vachamsi Me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll continue reading from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 4, the atrocities of King Kamsa, text 28. Which is not on the board, and 29, which is not on the board either. And so we'll be chanting text 30. So we'd have to... Anyway, I guess we can start with 30 and then... Normally, yeah. Okay, we can read text 28 to 89 and then chant 30. Shri Shuko Vacha Kamsaivam Prasannabhyam Vishuddham Pratibhashitam Devaki Vasudevabhyam Anugnato Vishadgraham. Shukadeva Goswami continued, thus having been addressed in purity by Devaki and Vasudeva, who were very much appeased, Kamsa felt pleased, and with their permission he entered his home. 29. Tasyam Ratram Vyatitayam Kamsavya Mantrina Tebya Achastatat Sarvam Yaduktam Yoga Nidraya. After that night passed, Kamsa summoned his ministers and informed them of all that had been spoken by Yogamaya who had revealed that he who was to slay Kamsa had already been born somewhere else. Purport. The Vedic scripture Chandi describes Maya, the energy of the Supreme Lord, as Nidra. Durga Devi Sarvabhuteshu Nidra Rupena Samastita. The energy of Yogamaya and Mahamaya keeps the living entity sleeping in this material world in the great darkness of ignorance. Yogamaya, the goddess Durga, kept Kamsa in darkness about Krishna's birth and misled him to believe that his enemy Krishna had been born elsewhere. Krishna was born the son of Devaki, but according to the Lord's original plan, as prophesied to Brahma, he went to Vrindavan to give pleasure to Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and other intimate friends and devotees for 11 years. Then he would return to kill Kamsa. Because Kamsa did not know this, he believed Yogamaya's statement that Krishna was born elsewhere, not of Devaki. Text 30. Please chant responsibly. Akarnya Braturgaditam Akarnya Bharturgaditam Tamuchu Deva Shatrava Tamuchur Deva Shatrava Devan Prati Kritamarša Devan Prati Kritamarša Daityana Nati Kovida Daityana Nati Kovida Akarnya Bharturgaditam Tam Uchur Deva Shatravaha Devan Prata Kritamarša Devan Prati Kritamarša Daityana Nati Kovida Akarnya Bharturgaditam Tamuchur Deva Shatravaha Devan Prati Kritamarša Daityana Nati Kovida Akarnya Bharturgaditam Tamuchu Deva Shatravaha Devam Prati Kritamarša Daityana Nati Kovida Deva Shatravaha Devam Prati Kritamarša Akarnya, after hearing Bhartu of their master, Gaditam, the words or statement, Tamuchu replied to him, Devashatrava, all the asuras who were enemies of the demigods, Devan, the demigods, Prati, toward, Kritamarša, who were envious, Daitya, the asuras, Na, not, Atikovida, who were very expert in executing transactions. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. After hearing their master's statement, the envious asuras who were enemies of the demigods and were not very expert in their dealings advised Kamsa as follows. Purport. There are two different types of men, the asuras and the suras. Dvau bhuta sargalokesmin deva sureva cha Vishnu bhakta smrita deva asuras tadviparyaya. Those who are devotees of Lord Vishnu, Krishna, are suras or devas, whereas those who are opposed to the devotees are called asuras. Devotees are expert in all transactions. Yasyasti bhakti bhagavati akinchana sarvaguna tatra samasate sura. Therefore they are called kovida, which means expert. Asuras, however, although superficially showing expertise in passionate activities, are actually all fools. They are neither sober nor expert. Whatever they do is imperfect. Magasha moga karmana. According to this description of the asuras given in Bhagavad Gita 9:12, whatever they do will ultimately be baffled. It was such persons who advised Kamsa because they were his chief friends and ministers. So, we'll read all the texts one more time, all the three texts. Shukadeva Goswami continued, thus having been addressed in purity by Devaki and Vasudeva, who were very much appeased, Kamsa felt pleased, and with their permission he entered his home. After that night passed, Kamsa summoned his ministers and informed them of all that had been spoken by Yogamaya, who had revealed that he who was to slay Kamsa had already been born somewhere else. After hearing the master's statement, the envious asuras, who were enemies of the demigods and were not very expert in their dealings, advised Kamsa as follows. So again, this is a very typical comparison of suras and asuras in Bhagavatam. We can see how Vasudeva and Devaki become appeased by Kamsa's repentance of his heinous acts, and they actually forgive Kamsa. And nevertheless, Kamsa's repentance didn't last very long, just few hours. And we can see here very clearly how the association works, right? That he got the association of Yogamaya, and she preached to him from the sky, shaked her finger at him, so he got scared, and then he felt that maybe he was doing wrong thing. This is very interesting, that Kamsa represents fear of material existence, and actually he is fearful of Krishna, and Acharyas are describing, as Srila Prabhupada says, that actually Kamsa's killing the newborn sons of Devaki and Vasudeva represents fear killing anarthas, because these Sadgarbhas, 6 sons of Devaki and Vasudeva, are representing 6 main vices, right? Kama, Krodha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya. Lust, greed, anger, pride, illusion, and envy. And so actually these are destroyed by the fear. And so fear can help at the initial stages of spiritual development. That's why sometimes religious people are called God-fearing people, right? So fear can actually help in a certain way. But of course, this is not the ultimate position to be fearful of God. We should develop our love and positive relationship with the Supreme Lord. But Kamsa himself got scared of the chastisement by Durga Devi, and then he decided to reform himself out of fear. And Vasudeva and Devaki were very happy by that. But it took him very short time, took him a little bit more of the demonic association, and so we will hear what the demons advised to him. Nothing good. Demons cannot really advise anything good. But we will see how he falls under the influence of bad association again. And so there are many aspects in these verses which could be discussed, but I think the first and foremost important aspect is the power of association. How association can either make or break us, right? How the association with the Lord and the Lord's devotees can completely change our consciousness, and how association with demoniac or materialistic people can degrade us. It's like a story of one criminal who heard that the princess of the kingdom he lived wanted to marry a sadhu. Somehow this princess, she had very strange desires. She didn't want to marry a prince, she wanted to marry sadhu. And she was adamant about her desire, and she actually forced her father to call all the sadhus in the kingdom so that she could choose one sadhu. So it was kind of Swayamvara, but instead of princes, there were sadhus involved. Anyway, king didn't even tell the sadhus why he was calling them, because he was thinking if they would know, maybe they won't come, and he was right. So he just requested sadhus to come to his palace, and sadhus respected king's request, and they came. And when they all gathered in the, Raj Sabha, in the royal assembly, king told them, actually, I have to tell you the truth. Why did I call you? But anyway, before that happened, when that became known that princess wants to marry a sadhu, and so king is calling all the sadhus of the kingdom for her daughter to choose a husband from. And this criminal, he was thinking, wow, that's a very good option. I wouldn't have to steal anymore. If I would just marry a princess, I would have half of the kingdom at my disposal. And so what he decided to do, he decided to pretend that he is also a sadhu. And so he dressed himself in saffron cloth and put big turban on his head. And so he came, grew up a bit of beard, and he came with other sadhus to the royal palace. And so when all the sadhus were seated, king told them, actually, I called you because my daughter wanted to marry one of you. And so that was the reason you were invited. And then king was saying, so what's your suggestion? Anyone is interested? And the sadhus kept quiet and very grave. And the king was asking the sadhu who was sitting nearby, so would you like? And the princess was saying, like, any sadhu who wants to marry me, I'll go for him. And king was asking the first sadhu who was sitting next to him, so would you like to marry my daughter? And sadhu looked up at the king with very angry gaze, and he said, who do you think I am? Every day I'm chanting Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim. So I'm not interested in these things. And actually it's an offense that you're calling me for such a materialistic purpose. Don't call me again. And so this sadhu very angrily stood up and left. And king became a little nervous, so he was asking the next sadhu was sitting, so would you marry my daughter? And the next sadhu gave another fiery speech, how devotees are, criticizing king. Devotees have very soft hearts, but very sharp tongues. And then he also stood up angrily and left. Then king became even more nervous, asking, like, next sadhu, same story. And so one by one, all the sadhus were blasting the king and leaving the palace. And when it was going on, our criminal, he was sitting and rubbing his hands. Wow! Very soon, it will be my turn. And of course, let all these sadhus refuse, I'll have better chances, right? And he was so excited, and he was just waiting to be asked to say, yes, sure, why not? But, he was kind of sitting a little bit away. He was actually the last one in line. Somehow it happened so. And he was sitting there and listening to all the preaching of all these sadhus about the futility of material existence and dangers of attachments and all these things, He heard quite a few short but very emotionally charged classes. And his mind started changing. And he was thinking, this is actually true what they're saying, that material life is the place of misery, and attachments, they're just increasing our misery. And so and when actually his turn came and king was asking, and king was completely devastated, he was saying, you are my last hope, so would you marry my daughter? And that criminal stood up and he said, do you think I'm the worst of all the sadhus? That they all declined to marry your daughter? I'm not going to marry your daughter either, so you can keep your daughter for yourself. And then he left the palace. So, by the power of association of renunciates, he became renunciate. So this is how it is, this is how it works. But so that's why it says sadhu sangha sarva shastra kaya lava matra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoy, that the power of association of sadhu is such that even a moment can bring one to all the perfections in life. But the first and foremost thing to keep away from is association with non-devotees, materialistic people. Asatsanga Tyaga, a Vaishnavachar, this is the first and foremost thing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions, that we should stay away from bad association. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his book Bhakti Loka explains that bad association doesn't mean just surface, casual contacts with people. I mean, we all have to do that. We do not live in the forest. We always have to come in touch with people who are not chanting Hare Krishna, not following regulative principles, etc. But if this is just surface, casual contact, it doesn't contaminate the consciousness. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the example that, you know, if you buy something in the market or in the shop, right? You go there and you choose your good, you pay for it, and you give the money to the vendor. Vendor may not be a devotee, so you came in contact with that person, but because there is no emotional involvement, there is no attachment as such to that association. So it doesn't really affect your consciousness. But if there is emotional attachment, then it actually affects our consciousness. It can affect our consciousness very badly. And in his seminar, Curing the Souls in Vaishnava Communities, Shriman Ravindra Swarupa Prabhu mentions very interesting and pathetic story, actually, how badly materialistic association. Of course, we cannot say that we do have demons in Kali Yuga, because demon, according to classical description of Shastra, is one who knows Krishna and one who hates Krishna, right? It's very hard to find someone in Kali Yuga who knows Krishna and who hates Krishna, but definitely many people have demoniac qualities, right? And so it is very important that we avoid becoming dependent on these people who have demoniac qualities. And so the story he told was involving two Prabhupada disciples who unfortunately fell victim of their material desires and left practices of devotional service and left devotional association and tried to go back to their old lifestyle of sense gratification. And they were friends, so they supported each other, but somehow they could not really enjoy because they felt guilt every time they broke regulative principle. And it was very hard for them to enjoy like that. And they decided that we have to do something about it. And they went to a psychologist. Psychologists, they become like gurus for modern people, right? Because whatever psychologists say, they follow. And they were explaining the predicament, and the psychologist, who unfortunately happened to be very materialistic, atheistic man, he inquired, he found out who they are, what their background, etc. Why do they feel so bad when they engage themselves in sinful activities? You know, normally people are supposed to feel good. So why do they feel bad? So they explained to him actually everything about Krishna consciousness, including everything about Srila Prabhupada. And then the psychologist said, now I understand you feel so miserable because you still have some respect for your guru, some appreciation for your guru, and naturally, because you know that you're doing something he does not approve, you feel bad, so that is the problem. And then he gave them the remedy. He said, you have to destroy respect for your guru, and you have to criticize and blaspheme your guru on regular basis. In this way you will destroy all respect to him, towards him, and in this way you can peacefully enjoy sense gratification. That's a very horrifying example of becoming a victim of bad association, because it's one thing to commit sinful activity, which can be quite easily forgiven by the Lord, because conditioned souls naturally have this tendency. It's understood. But to commit Vaishnava aparat, offense against devotee, especially pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, that was millions and billions times worse than any sinful activities. Then all sinful activities in the world would not be worse than one offense against pure devotee. And so, unfortunately, this stupid psychologist, he gave them so-called cure, which was worse than the disease, right? It's like you come to the doctor and you say, oh, I have a headache, and doctor says, oh, I have very nice remedy for you. You know, no head, no headache, right? Let's chop it off. So, unfortunately. But this is very instructive story for all of us to, avoid bad association. And this is what we mean under bad association, to become dependent emotionally, mentally, psychologically of those people who have demoniac or materialistic consciousness. And so we can see very clearly in here that because Kamsa depends on his allies, right? On his ministers, etc., and then they advise him against becoming a good person. They say, no, you should become even more vicious. We'll hear all their advices. And Kamsa decides to follow all this. And so, for us it is very relevant, because many times we feel victims of material desires. It's not so easy to practice Krishna consciousness as some of you who have been practicing for a while probably noticed, right? Because so many material desires and so much conditioning we have to overcome, right? Let's see if anyone noticed that Krishna consciousness is not easy. Okay. And Srila Prabhupada admitted that, yes. He said, Krishna consciousness is difficult, but material world is impossible. So this is the choice we have between difficult and impossible, right? Sometimes he was calling Krishna consciousness, defining Krishna consciousness as the best deal out of the bad bargain, right? Material world is bad bargain, but Krishna consciousness is the best deal you can get out of it, right? And so, yes, better to have difficult than impossible, right? Better blind uncle than no uncle. Or, as Prabhupada would say, something better than nothing, right? And so, yes, we follow Krishna consciousness imperfectly, but still, it's better to follow something nice imperfectly than perfectly follow something bad, right? It's better to as they say, it's better to be relatively wealthy than absolutely poor, right? Or better to be the, the last of the wise than the first of the fools amongst fools, right? And so it's better to be bad devotee than good materialist. And so devotees understand that, but still the power of bad association, and it's really important for us to understand that the material conditioning we struggle so much to overcome. We think it comes from previous lives, previous conditioning, it's there, but this is not the strongest influence. The strongest influence is association. Because, when so many people around you have material desires and they're not even shy about it, we're going to be affected. And they promote their ideas very aggressively, right? And they are very proud of their, sense gratification. You don't have to look for proofs very hard. You can just, see what's going on a weekend in Sydney. So many people gratifying their senses, right? And they just emanate that energy of sense gratification, and naturally it affects our consciousness as well. And especially if we become dependent on these people, we become very badly affected. And so I think this is a really crucial point for our movement, biggest hurdle for our movement to overcome, to somehow set devotees to be independent. And Srila Prabhupada was suggesting one way, because he saw that devotees, they take up to Krishna consciousness in the cities, but then they fall victims of bad association again, and we have seen that happening, right? How many of you in your Krishna conscious experience have seen people joining, doing quite good, but then leaving? Any? Unfortunately, it's happening too often, right? Because of that influence. It's like if whatever few, how many devotees we have in Sydney? 1,000? Less? 1,000? And how many people live in Sydney? Huh? Almost 5 million. So you have 1,000 against 5 million, it's like, what are the chances? So we're getting so much bombarded by all this stuff from all sides. It's not surprise, actually. That's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was saying, don't be surprised with those who go, be surprised with those who still stay, who stick around despite of all odds. It's pretty hard, it's really, really hard. And so Srila Prabhupada had an idea that maybe we go to farm communities and become independent on, this materialistic society and live separate, and so in this way will be isolated from bad influence, right? But it's another 50 years of, trials and failures. I met original Hamsadutta Prabhu in California. He lives there now. And he told me a very interesting story about Srila Prabhupada. He said when one time Srila Prabhupada was invited to visit Bangladesh, and because Bangladesh has many holy sites associated with Lord Chaitanya's associates. And so he went with few disciples to one of those holy places, and he was received very, very nicely, and he was given a hut to stay in, with attached roof and, cow dung floor and walls, and everything was so clean, and birds are chirping, and, it's like very idyllic atmosphere. And Srila Prabhupada sat in that hut, and disciples sat on the floor, including Hamsadutta Prabhu, and Prabhupada said, "Look how nice it is here. We should all live like this only, in villages, in huts." And Hamsadutta looked at Srila Prabhupada and he said, "Srila Prabhupada, I share your feeling. I think it's really good. But, because I'm a city boy, I'm not really sure if I would last very long in this environment." And Prabhupada looked at him and he said, "You're right. I'm not even sure about myself because I'm also a city boy." So it's pretty hard, as we know from our 50 years of history, because those who joined in the city and they get used to the city atmosphere, to adjust to simple life in farms is pretty difficult. And then one other senior devotee made a very interesting point. He said, even if we will try to escape from the cities and settle in farm communities, and even if we will successfully organize everything very nicely there, taking cow protection and self-sufficiency, etc. But then, materialistic society will continue to degrade, because it's actually the devotees who, even though our influence upon them doesn't seem to be so significant, but still, actually, it's described in the scriptures that one devotee can neutralize karma of thousands of people. And so devotees do influence the society in a positive way, and actually devotees in many ways stop society from degrading, and we can see that by the influence of preaching, people do become interested in spiritual development, etc., and they take more interest in goodness, in goodness lifestyle, etc. Just this morning we were driving and I saw one man smoking, and I said it's pretty rare these days to see anyone smoking. So it becomes like a thing of the past gradually, right? People smoking. But in Prabhupada times, and in my childhood I remember that that every single flight was smoking flight. And even if you would get like non-smoking seats, that would be like a joke because everybody else is smoking. So you'd be inhaling the smoke anyway. So people smoked everywhere. It was massive, like, you know, mass madness or something like that. But now you can see that goodness is also increasing, even though, you know, sinful activities are on the rise, but goodness is also on the rise, and we can understand that devotees do contribute very seriously to the promotion of principles of goodness and spirituality. And so, but just imagine devotees would leave the cities and try to establish, to go separate, and then there would be no one to encourage these people to go up, so they would be going down and down and down, and then they would degrade themselves to such an extent that they would completely destroy everything, run out of all the resources, and then what will happen? They would abandon the cities and they would go out just looking for food, right? Hungry and angry, materialistic people. And they would be roaming everywhere, and just imagine, you know, them coming across idyllic devotee community, right, with all the resources. You can just imagine what the consequences could be. And so it's like a Kurukshetra kind of thing, you know, that we cannot escape, we cannot, you know, leave the battle. We have to fight. We have to continue influencing the society, but we should be setting ourselves in such a way that, you know, we do not become the victims. You know, it's really important to bring the casualty rate of the war to the bare minimum, if not to eliminate it altogether. And I think if we would do that, that would make Srila Prabhupada very, very happy, because he was very concerned and very upset, even by seeing one devotee leave, right? And so he was making a lot of effort to protect the devotees from bad influence and even bring them back. Right? And so for that end, at least for that end, we should try our best to set ourselves in such a way that we are in the world, but not of the world, in a sense that we are in materialistic environment, but our activities and the way we earn our livelihood is not putting us in the position when we have to depend on those people, right, to the maximum. So that's, I think, really important task for us to change the situation. All right, any comments, questions, suggestions, complaints? Yes. Oh, Marna, I can remember first.
Okay. A question about, you gave an example about the rise of moral goodness, and you gave an example of the smoking rates going down. But at the same time, we see a lot of bad things on the increase. So should we credit that also to us not doing enough? Because, like you see, smoking in some countries going up, places like Australia is going down because of the legislation and the general awareness of how people people want to pneumonia now understand. 40 years ago, people thought that they didn't necessarily connect with cigarette smoking to cancer. Now people know that that's the case. So is it safe to sort of look at the world and see good things and bad things as sort of outcome of our activity, where it's all part of a greater scheme? Because that's a very simple way of trying to see whether we make progress or not, right? Isn't it?
Well, actually, I heard from my spiritual master, Prabhupada's quote, that Krishna consciousness affects human society in a similar way how lemon juice affects milk. Anyone who knows a little bit about cooking understands if you put lemon juice into the milk will separate into whey and curd. And so Srila Prabhupada said, when Krishna consciousness is applied to human society, then people separate into divine and demoniac. So basically indicating that whoever has some, inclination towards goodness and spirituality, upon coming across Krishna consciousness, this inclination will start developing. But those people who have very strong inclination towards materialistic, degrading life, they would probably, as a matter of protest, degrade even faster. And so actually we can see that in the history of the development of the movement, that when Prabhupada came to the Western world, it was pretty homogeneous, right? That people had, people were committing a lot of sinful activities, but no one felt bad about it. It was acceptable, and they were, not so aggressive towards each other, etc. But now we can see that polarization of the society is on the rise. It's very interesting phenomenon that it's not that society is either degrading or advancing. It's both simultaneously, right? That a part of the society madly degrading themselves as if they are like competing with somebody who will degrade faster. And the other part of society is trying very hard to advance in the categories of spirituality and goodness. We can also see that, including interest in yoga, and even chanting Hare Krishna becomes very popular. And of course, so many principles of goodness become prominent. And we can see that, this polarization is on the rise. This is what's happening. And actually, yes, that we've contributed to that. Of course, we cannot say that we are the only guys on the island. There are so many other spiritual groups, and Prabhupada was saying that, sincere practitioners, they're also devotees, and so it's Lord Chaitanya's master plan, and therefore there are many people who promote principles of goodness and principles of developing relationship with God. And so collectively, all of us, we make an impact on the society. And it's funny enough that materialists, they feel the push, and so those who are inclined, they join, or they change their lifestyle, they become better. But those who are not inclined, as a matter of protest, they try to do crazy things. I mean, it's so obvious, like in India, for example, Narendra Modi, who is of course a devotee, even though he's not ISKCON devotee or do not belong to Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, but still, he is a devotee in his own way, and he's very concerned about degradation of the society, and tries to establish something nice. And first and foremost thing he tried was cow protection. And so Nowadays, in many states, they have official title, official position in the government, which is cow minister, cow protection minister. And you know what they call cow protection minister? Gopal. What's your position in the government? I am Gopal. Because Gopal means protector of the cow, so they have.
India is the biggest beef producer in the world. India is the biggest beef producer in the world.
We're coming to that. And so, from one side, Narendra Modi is doing this, making this massive push towards cow protection. At the same time, the materialistic and degraded places in India, such as, sorry to say, Kerala, which is communist state, and communists and demons are, the same face, basically speaking, because communists, they don't believe in gods, and so it's very clear. Communist means demon, demon means communist. And so they organize beef festivals as a protest against the policy of the government. So, and we can see how it works, right? That there is a push for good, and then there is a backlash. The materialistic sense in George, they want to also show, no, we're not going to give up. We're going to be fighting till the end, right? And so this is what's happening. It's Kurukshetra, basically speaking. And for us, it's just a matter of, instead of fighting hard, I think we should, fight smart. It's like one thing I still remember very vividly from my childhood, from my school days. The Second World War was really a big thing for Russia, because Russia was so much involved in it, and we had veterans of the Second World War coming and sharing their memories, their experiences with their school children, etc. And I still remember one of those veterans came, and one of the first things he told us that, the kind of popular picture of the soldier in the Second World War is the one who is standing, tall and strong, and, runs forward and shoots the enemy and kills everybody. He said no, that in real life, this is what is shown in the movie. In real life, the true heroes were not like that. The true heroes were those who would not expose themselves to the bullets. They would, crawl and, move in a very humble way, because they didn't want to, catch the bullet, get the bullet, and then they would achieve a lot. And so I think, because our process is bhakti yoga, and, we bring that fighting analogy because, it's also, we can say, informational war, and also war on influence, who will influence the society more, spiritual people or materialistic people. We have to learn how, instead of fighting hard, which we have done for many years, I think we have to learn how to fight smart. And as it says, get in as a needle and out as a plow, because unfortunately, our approach was in as a plow, and nothing happens, right? You can't even get in. So, yeah. Because bhakti yoga is buddhi yoga, yoga of intelligence, and it's very important for us to think, how do we actually maximize our impact by applying our intelligence to the process and analyzing how the things would work, could work, so that we would achieve our purposes. Is that answering? Thank you very much.
you were saying that conditioning is very powerful, but association is actually even more powerful in the sense that if you associate with devotees, they can have such a powerful impact on you. Why is it that many devotees, I suppose, that even after years or even decades of association with devotees, it seems like the conditioning still rears its head, and that's why they leave Krishna consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And actually, sometimes it even seems like no matter how much you practice Krishna consciousness, you kind of feel like you're going backwards.
Mm.
So, how does that happen?
Yeah, this is a good question. Why, despite of so much association with devotees, the conditioning is so strong and we cannot overcome it? Again, reflecting on that verse, Satam prasanga mama virya samvido bhavanti hrit karna rasayana katha. And I'm not speaking about it because, I'm Bhakti Rasayana Sagar Swami, but actually this is a really important verse for us to understand, that it says Satam prasanga, very deep association, because pra means prakrishta rupena, right? Intensifying prefix before the word, and sangha is of course association. So satam prasanga means very deep and very meaningful association with devotees. Mama virya samvido, if in that association my wonderful pastimes are described or discussed, then bhavanti hrit karna rasayana katha, then those discussions, they give full satisfaction to the ear and the heart. They come as rasayana katha, as nectarian topics. And then tajyoshanata shopavarga vartmani, very soon they liberate one from material conditioning, and shadaratir bhaktir anukramishati, and help one to advance very quickly by developing firm faith, attachment to the process of devotional service, and love for Krishna, right? Anukramishati, one after another, these things follow. So, it's like not enough to sit next to sadhus, stand next to sadhus, eat next to sadhus, sleep next to sadhus. It's not enough to advance spiritually. Because you can be surrounded by so many devotees, but if you don't have meaningful relationships, you will feel very lonely, right? And so I was thinking that we have 6 types of loving exchanges amongst the devotees, which are recommended by Rupa Goswami. And of course we know them. Dadati pratigrinati, guhyamakhyati prichati, bhunkte bhajayate chaiva, sadvidi priti lakshanam. And so if we analyze those and see how much we succeeded in these exchanges, that what's missing, right? I think our greatest strength is bhunkte bhajayate chaiva, right? That feeding and being fed, prasadam exchange is going on very nicely. There have been no recorded case of starvation death in ISKCON, right? Even though there have been quite a number of cases, death of overeating prasadam, unfortunately. So, prasadam exchange amongst devotees is like almost perfect, right? We can even say that sometimes it's overdone. Then, dadati pratigrinati, giving gifts, receiving gifts, not as generous as prasadam, but still happening, right? I mean, I wouldn't be able to travel if devotees would not give donations, for example, right? And I'm not asking So devotees do that voluntarily. So it's quite well developed as well, right? Like giving things, supporting each other in different ways. It's happening. And of course, mostly thanks to Indian community who still has culture, right? And of giving, which is very nice. We still can function. But if we look at the third pair of loving exchanges, which is Guhyama Kyati Prishati, revealing your mind in confidence and being willing to listen and be confidential about what you heard, right? And not broadcast it straight away. I think that's really largely missing in our society, right? Confidential sharing, opening our minds and opening our hearts. And I think this is even more relevant and even more important for us than, feeding or, getting prasadam or getting, some financial support or getting some gift. I think, opening the heart and exchanging with the devotees, actually being, having an opportunity to actually say everything you think about and not afraid of being criticized or betrayed in any way. So that's, I think, we really, really, really have to work on that one, right? So I think this is where the real deep association comes in. When you have such good and confidential friends in Krishna consciousness, with whom you can discuss anything without any fear. Right? And who can really help you. And we should have at least one or two friends like that, otherwise it's almost impossible to survive in the long run. Yes, Prabhu.
Maharaj, Prabhupada established ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Society, I'm talking about society, whatever Maharaj told me. If we exchange like that, it could be society. At the present we see our society not exist. Temple is based our everything. But how can we can develop society not focus on temple?
Oh, that's a very big question. I think this question, we will discuss we have evening class here today? No? Tomorrow Sunday class, right? Okay, I think during the Sunday class we will address that because we're actually starting a special training school for these purposes to train devotees, professional devotees, to start projects of social value which would carry elements of spiritual technology and Krishna consciousness, so that we could have a great impact on the large segment of human society, of the society, so that we could actually transition from being an exotic religious group. This is how we are perceived at the moment. Very, very minor and very exotic religious group. This is the best, right? Definition. The worst definition is, of course, cult. Many people believe in that also. And so we have to shift public's perception of us from being, like kind of strange religious group into major contributors to the society at large in terms of unity and peace and solving people's problems. This is what the first purpose of ISKCON stands for, right? And so this is a humble undertaking, trying to train the devotees to become leaders of their own spiritual, social projects, which would have a serious impact and would have a big scale. And we have the ways how we want to go about it. All right, so I think we should stop here because it's already past 9. But thank you for listening so patiently. Krantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.